Hey there guys, today we're looking at Ggglygy. He's playing against below average or something like that at invite, so let's see how this game goes. So if you're spotting this, alright, so there's one rule about granary. If you're pushing left side, you go to the ammo pack right before a gap, and that's as far as you can go before a scout that was rolling out garage would meet you there. So by plus forwarding this far, you run the risk of potentially running into a scout in garage, and he's obviously going to win that trade because he has 2 line of sight breaks. So you really want to stick around the ammo pack for a few seconds to kind of feel out where their scouts are before pushing forward. But in general, I like that you're trying to scout out what's going on right now. Since both scouts are up top, you're really more concerned about getting a buff, so there wasn't really a whole lot of point hanging around gap for a couple seconds there. And yeah, this mid was just unfortunate because Control Muffin hit some pretty good pipes on you. Luckily for you guys, Ninja Neck lives, so you guys should be looking to take yard when you respawn. Actually, you're not the first wave, so you'll probably just be getting into mid after your team takes yard. Speed up a bit. Alright, so they lost a scout for some reason. So you guys have a really easy mid take, and you're looking not to use Uber here because they're already down one. So you call to your team that the sticks are probably right side since the demo was there with pipes out. So right now you need to be going with your team on the left because you're not going to accomplish much on the right. So you're doing that, and it's really good. But see, if you're ahead of your medic pushing through choke here, you have ample time to kind of clear things out for your team. Let your medic know when he needs to back up if someone's going to jump in. And really just clear the hiding spots, so kind of default to them. Especially if you have a pick, there's not a whole lot to watch on the flank, and you're not really going to have to be too worried about, you know, pressuring from all angles, because they don't have a lot of players to really defend a push from 6 people through one door anyway. So right now, since your med died, you're probably just going to try and kill them, or kill their med, or at least kill like 2 fragging classes so they can't really get into 2. So damage on the demo is good, but you really should have sacked into him. Just from like, I think something popped him up, a rocket or a sticky or something, and then the damage you did. I would have expected to kill him with the next shot, so you obviously wouldn't have died to that sticky and you could have kept going a bit, but that's not really a big deal. So right now your team did a pretty good fight at mid. You'll definitely be able to hold second. It's good that you're getting back to your medic. Just make sure you play this properly. Get a buff quickly. You can't hold this without a buff, so you being here doesn't do a whole lot except you don't have a buff right now. Whereas you could have been 185 pressuring the point as that scout got on it if you got into your med and then pushed back to 2. Not really a big deal, but a little minor thing. You shouldn't really be around here. There's not really a whole lot you're going to do in Lunchbox. It's pretty much just a roamer thing. They can control it pretty well. If your team's confident in their on the enemy's position in yard, you can peek the shower door, and that's pretty much the extent of what you're going to do on the right. Okay, so if you're peeking this door, this is a really big mistake, as you can see right now. But you need to have a buff. There's no reason not to get a buff to peek this door. And just in taking that buff, make sure you get there as quickly as possible so there's less decay. So yeah, you're put up against a scout that I think has a little bit more health than you. Or I would assume, like, if that scout were good, he'd be having a buff peeking this door. So let's see how this goes. So you get some good damage on him and you're chasing. You need to chase. Like, I don't know if the rocket hit and you didn't really... Okay, so someone went through drop, but still. I don't know if that rocket hit and you didn't have an accurate read on their damage, but you saw that scout didn't have overheal particles coming into that fight, so he's not going to be, you know, he's going to be the same health as you, 125. So the damage you did to him, you can kind of commit on him, and, you know, it's not so bad that you lose your roamer to that drop down play because you get that scout and potentially more after that. Whereas right now, backing up, you're not going to really be able to deal with roamer, even if your soldier did damage to him, because he can control that area pretty well. Actually, no, it was... Never mind. So yeah, he dropped a roamer, and I don't think he did a whole lot of damage to their roamer because they went through drop.
Alert. The control point is being captured.
So yeah, being up here doesn't do anything. You're just creating a really uncomfortable situation for yourself. First of all, your buff's decaying, and it looks like you're going in right now anyway, which is just kind of misplay in terms of health. And you're in this area that's very favorable for soldiers, and you never want to be putting yourself into 1v1s with soldiers in this kind of situation. So play a bit on the ground, you know, do some spam. As long as you're directing attention away from your team, you're doing a lot. And yeah, right now you're peeking this, and it's nice that you see him. But if it was a soldier there, he would be hitting you a little bit, and it'd be pretty unfortunate. So right now, in this situation, I would expect to get pushed by a lot of people, because the scout saw you, the soldier saw you, both of whom are perfectly healthy except for the scout that you chipped a bit, because they're coming from lunchbox. Your team previously was on the left, so no one else is really damaging since your roamer died in lunchbox. So you're really afraid of the right. And I would expect, like I think this pocket's doing here, to end the Uber by getting up top if they have a worse Uber, because it's easy for him to take this 1v1, and if you're not there, just inhabit this area and kind of pressure people out from here. So you should have dropped out window and kind of pressured from the right side. That'd probably been your best bet, or before just taking a buff and then been able to pressure from the right side with a buff. Yeah, so the pocket ended the Uber doing that, and he kind of destroyed you. It's pretty good play since Miles showed up, but I would have expected him to kill you instantly. He missed a lot of shotgun, which is pretty bad on his part. So that was kind of lucky that that went so well, I think. So right now you just want to stay here with your buff until you find out what's going on. See, right now you're just doing nothing and your buff's decaying. You've actually lost 15 health just doing nothing. And you haven't gained any information from it. So you want to be actively taking these buffs. If you're in this position where you can't peek the door, just take a buff, figure out what's out there. And the more frequently and the more consistently you know what's going on out there, the less likely it is for you to run into trouble when you peek this door right now. So yeah, in these kind of stalemates, you're not going to be doing a whole lot. And it's fortunate that your demo man's over here, but he kind of left. If they end up pushing right, you pretty much have to get out, and your roamer is pretty forfeit. I would actually probably tell Mile to stay a bit back there, because there's not a whole lot he can do to prevent himself from dying pretty easily if they all push the right. And the only really way to counter that is by having your demo kind of get there before them and stick them off, or at least meet there and exchange with Ubers and try to get them to multi. So it's really not your territory, you're just there to kind of scout it out before they get in, so that's why being really aggressive on that shower door with your buff and getting buffs constantly is really helpful for your team, because it allows you to call for your demo when to go over there. Okay, so you don't want to peek this with 185 because, first of all, 2 scouts took it, and even though you have a buff advantage on them, if their mate isn't there, you're probably not going to do very well. And I would expect multiple people to be there because they kind of cleared your roamer out and they already established position with their scouts. So even though you have a really big buff here, I would not kind of push this because their splash is going to be too powerful. So just rely on your team to kind of slow them down. You know, demo putting stickies here and demo putting stickies up top. Like, you're really lucky that soldier kind of ignored you there, because he really should have just rocketed you and let the scout kill you. So fortunately, they have this really shitty Uber for no reason. And what you're waiting, yeah, no, this is perfect. You just want to, okay, you want to put more pressure than that, but make sure you don't take a whole lot of damage from him. Okay, so it was good, like your initial position fighting that guy was a really good distance, but you don't really want to back up from the roamer who doesn't have a shotgun. He's not really going to be able to, even if he has better aim than you, kind of deal with you at that range, and you just need to jump on and off the pipe to avoid his rockets. And you know, don't want to bait your teammate like that. Obviously Miles should have killed him because he was low HP, the damage you did to him and the jumps, so it's kind of unfortunate, but yeah. So now you guys are down a soldier, so you're pretty poor at defending right now, so I'd expect them to take this point. So if you don't get in quick and get a buff, you're probably not going to win. But you take that 1v1 and win, which is pretty nice. Good victory there. And you can afford to die here, but I would probably expect to get out, yeah. So they kind of have advantage just because they Ubered a bit earlier. I don't think it's going to come into play that much, but I would probably, if you're going to snipe, don't snipe from right here at the door. Like, you don't want to be in a position where they can kill you or it takes you very long to get back to spawn. So for that reason, I would also cross inside of last, just because if you're crossing and they decide to push in, especially since you know they have a little bit of advantage, and your team is at like 90%, I would expect them to get it as you're crossing over. You're just in a better position not to die and closer to the spawn when you're crossing over like that if you go inside of last instead of, like, inside the spawn area instead of outside of last. So just a little tip there. Okay, so you guys get a pick immediately, and that's kind of your cue to either push up really aggressively as sniper or switch off. And it looks like you're switching off. And in this instance, I would still expect your soldiers to sack in, just because I don't think it's likely you're going to have a very clean Uber. So maybe you're going heavy so you can defend a bit better while they sack in. Okay, you're back to sniper, which is fine, but like, you understand what I'm saying about how your team should have made a play off of getting that pick. It was really good that you guys got that pick, but you can't just sit around and let that just go to waste. So just have the player sack in. Obviously, it's not going to be you since you're a sniper, but in the case where you're a scout and someone gets a fresh pick like that, it's kind of on you to go in, even though it's unlikely, like very unlikely, that you'll get anything done. It's just really nice to have a scout do it because it syncs up the spawns really quickly. Or not, it just syncs up the spawns because you're going to die pretty quickly as scout. You have the ability to be either successful or unsuccessful really quickly, so that's kind of the reason why you'd send a scout in on a point like this where it's pretty, in general, I don't think it's likely that you're going to get much out of a suicide off of their misplay or suicide. So yeah, they're probably going to keep screwing with you guys until they get a pick, which is kind of unfortunate. So if you're not doing that suicide into them thing, you're going to get punished a little here. Like right now, the most buff scout, so Steve C in this situation, needs to be going in. He needs to be punishing their aggression, or they're going to do this for free forever until they get bored. And honestly, that's not really fun, and most teams kind of quit after like the third or fourth try, but at least you can get something out of them doing something perceivably for free. Because obviously he's coming back on heavy here. They Uber a little too early for that. So you guys should be able to defend this. Alright, so when you're taking that shutter door, you want to be a bit more careful, so I would have taken it on the right side, just so if he was there, I would be able to deal with him, as opposed to being really close to him and taking some splash. You're not really too concerned with helping your team there. Like, I would have been more aggressive at the beginning, willing to trade damage with that soldier early on, just so I knew my, like, the extent to which I could push a bit earlier. So if you take damage earlier but do a lot of damage, it's a little bit better than taking damage later. Obviously you're going to have crit hills, but more importantly, you can kind of decide whether or not to go in on a situation that's more in your favor. He's closer to your last point and your team, so it's easier for you to back up like that. And obviously he's in an open area, which kind of favors a scout. So pressuring him earlier would have been a better decision there. And then peeking that door from the far right mechanically just makes a little more sense, because he was weak anyway, so I would have assumed that you were going to get the kill, which leads me to kind of tell you that you should take everything a bit safer, because if someone's weak and they know they're going to die, especially a roamer, they're going to try to all-in you, and especially at the shutter door, that choke point like that, it's really favorable for that kind of exchange. So even if he doesn't kill you, that's a really good trade for him. And he ended up killing you, so it worked out pretty well for his team. But yeah, since their heavy was not really synced up with the Uber, you know, you guys defend last, which is nice.
Alert. Our control point
Just gonna fast forward to respawn. So again, there's this, like, it's nice that you're checking drop down, but unless you actually check behind those boxes, it's not doing a whole lot. So just, I'd have your roamer sit up here, and now that Miles here, you can go ahead and take a buff and check the right door. I could even say that you could probably check it right now, because they were obviously at a disadvantage from the last fight, and you would have been fine. So yeah, you obviously could check it a bit earlier, but checking this buff right now is, with a buff right now, is nice. But there's no reason to leave. Like I said, you just spent the entire time letting your buff decay. It didn't really accomplish much, and that scout got more damage on you than he should have because he was allowed to push up that far without you seeing him. So make sure you're taking buffs here so you can cover this door, otherwise you're not really doing a whole lot for your team. And since their roamer is playing really aggressively to drop down, it's happened twice now, and he's done it a third time. Obviously Miles caught him out because he's already up there. You guys might look to push into right yard. You know there aren't stickies there because you haven't heard them and you've been here the entire time. So if you, your scout partner, and Mile get a buff, you can probably push into yard and pick a scout as long as Mile plays it properly. So you might look to do something like that, especially once you see him go towards garage. You're almost guaranteed that you know what's going on. He could be faking it, but at this level, like, I don't think it's going to happen. And yeah, I wouldn't really go up here because he can rocket pre-fire you and then jump up, and it would be a problem. If he was quick at it, it'd probably punish you a lot. But this position where you switch Mal for you also works pretty well, since, you know, the soldier's not going to be damage you a whole lot from up here anyway. But I would try to push into right yard a little bit more aggressively when their roamers trying to get up drop down a lot. Okay, at this point I don't think they're going to push because they dropped one. So unless they're already Ubering at this point, and their med shouldn't have dropped someone when they're Ubering, so I assume they wouldn't be Ubering, but your team would have called it anyway. You need to sack in, or Steve C needs to sack in, or Mile needs to sack in, because they're going to be pretty stalemate. And in this case, I'd prefer you or Steve C to sack in, because they already dropped a scout, so you're obviously even playing field if you drop a scout off of that. And soldiers are better defensively, so you're more inclined in a defensive position to drop a scout. So, in this case, given your positioning and health, I would probably have Steve C go in since he's pretty buffed. He's always with the combo. Just have him go through closet and make sure you don't give them some more free shit. Like, you've been giving them, as a team, free shit the entire game. So, like, you can't do that. It's not gonna fly. Actually, you guys try to move out, which is nice. Taking this buff is good. Now you're looking to pressure this roamer. Any chip damage you can do to him is great, because he's going to be away from his mech anyway. So, before you give up your position by shooting the left side, they weren't really looking at you. I would have made sure that you pressured this roamer a bit with your buff and a little bit of surprise factor, because he doesn't know you're there yet. So, taking this corner pretty sharp, pushing into garage a little bit, shooting him, and then kind of backing out, and just making sure that he has to expend rockets to make sure that in this situation you all in him, he kills you. And in that way you can get some free damage by threatening, like, going in on him and kind of scaring him a little bit. So when you have 185, you have a lot of luxury to do that, and your buff is really fresh, so that was fortunate. And this is a good play. It's unfortunate that he did a little bit of damage to your mech, because I think that might come into play a little bit later. But yeah, this is good. You don't want to be taking this door as close to Steve C as you are, because granted the soldier just died, but if something were to splash this area, you would both be taking damage, and since you're already pretty weak, like 60 HP is probably like around where I would say Scout is still very, very efficient at damage trades. So you don't really want to drop below that are just going to get bullied around. So make sure you have some distance between you two when you're opening doors like this. You should just keep going, because I would assume that your demo's still actively fighting them, and any kind of damage you can spread and the quicker you get in is going to be better for your team. So in this situation, I guess they ended up not pushing and you died because of it, but that's kind of, I don't know, that's just a bit of miscommunication there. So yeah, you ended up getting their med, or Steve C and you got their med. So I was gonna say you had advantage until that happened. So at this point your buffs are pretty shitty because I don't think your wave of respawns really got the med anyway, and you obviously just got there. So you're pretty fucked. Yeah, so in this case you would want to all in that soldier just because if you die, it doesn't really matter since you're losing anyway. And if you get him, it kind of delays their push a little bit, and you might be able to defend enough to get your medic 40% before they end up pushing in. So it was a good play to go on that soldier. And yeah, make sure you take this pack, and you could even go drop down because really you have nothing to lose here. You're not going to defend the point by playing passive. It's a good bit of damage you're doing here from this range, and you're not taking a whole lot, but maybe look to rush this demo in Season Z. And just bypass this scout. It doesn't matter if you can break these line of sights. He's not really going to be able to do anything to you. If he chases you around those corners, you're going to have a really nice fight by just turning around. And then that way you can kind of control two people at once. The demo's worried about you, the scout's worried about you. So right now at this point it's kind of bad for you to be going in, because your team already forced them on the point, so they're already at an advantage. And you did some pretty decent damage there, but I would expect that caliber of team to kind of negate that instantly, that kind of play with a 6 times cap. They probably should have mulched you pretty quickly. It's, yeah, you kind of have to like risk reward certain kind of plays, and when you're already winning there, I would probably say that kind of play isn't that favorable. And I probably, if you were going to do something like that as a team, I would have everyone else kind of show up first. I know it's hard to communicate with your team what's really going on when you're kind of behind them and going to push them, but you guys should work on that so your soldiers kind of peek in first so they can take a little bit of the spam and cause some confusion as you go in, and that'll make those a lot more effective. In any rate, it seemed to work out pretty well because you guys kind of went in. And you get their med, so you have pretty big advantage, and right now you're looking not to Uber into 2. You want to take this without Ubering, so you want to be on the med, and basically since Steve C just died, you want to be capping. You are just capping on the point solo, and your team's preventing people from pushing on you. The way it is right now, you guys are pushing up a little bit too far, and even though people missed a lot, they had a lot of opportunities to damage a bunch of people. So the way it should have been is you should have been a bit more forward. Someone should have been up top watching it by themselves, like just a roamer, and you just cap the point with a medic beam on you. Demo stickies you off, and the pocket watches everything and makes sure nothing gets on you. So that's a really safe way of capping. Nothing can really get on you guys, and you're preserving your advantage. So it's good that you guys kept it. So let's see how you guys take mid. So since the demo was in left yard, you're pretty confident that you can get through into right here. You should check those sticks anyway. So this demo isn't buffed because the scout's getting, yeah, okay, that was a good play. So if scout's building, you're kind of open to put up some pressure because the medic's attached to him for more often, because you kind of leave him, he gets that dot, and it's a really pain in the ass. So that demo in certain situations is probably going to have as low as like 200 health because the medic isn't be able to get to him that often. So that was a really good play, and you had the health back to fall onto, so it wasn't really that risky. The scout really couldn't have chased you, your team would have picked him up anyway, and if you died to him it would be a 1-for-1 trade, and when you're already ahead like this, trading is pretty good number wise. So yeah, you guys are recognizing that you have to go back for the back cap, except everyone's going back, which is a bit unfortunate.
The control point is
Um,
being contested.
I probably would have just sent you and the roamer. It turns out that Ranga going back was actually a good idea, so you should have stayed around with the med. And because of that, your team kind of gets forced. And you lose the kind of advantage that you had without really getting their med. But they're playing pretty shitty right now.
Control point is
This Uber shouldn't be getting a whole lot. You might look to... Okay, so a couple things happened there. What you did going for the back hack, you probably should have stayed. Helped your med live a bit, keep the advantage, which wasn't really a big deal. There's a lot of confusion in those situations, so I understand, and I probably wouldn't have done myself. Then pushing back into mid, you made a lot of good choices. Target priority, just looking at their overheal particles and seeing what was going on and focusing with your team. And then as soon as they Ubered, using your buff, you're pushing forward, trying to take some crit heals or take a 1v1 because you have a really big buff. But you pass the health pack, so what you might look to do there, since their Uber is going to be around 10 seconds, you don't really want them to be able to fall back on that pack, so you might Boston Bash yourself as you're taking that pack. Just it doesn't really do a whole lot of damage to you, just takes a little bit of your buff, but as soon as you take up the pack, the dot is negated. And since I assume you're only going to be doing chip damage here anyway, it's not going to be that big of a deal for you. So yeah, this soldier actually ended up taking that pack. It's actually your soldiers, so it's pretty good, but I kind of expect them to control it a little bit, so it might be an idea there. And then, yeah, I think you were kind of fucked there, and it's just unlucky that you chose the choke to kind of look to fight someone and no one was there. And then it was a little bit unlucky that your team died to a really bad Uber with someone that wasn't very loaded.
alert. The control point is being contested. Alert. Our control point is being captured.
See, this is a situation where you don't have enough people controlling, and shit kind of gets behind you because of that. So really, especially on Granary 2nd, I would kind of say that one person camping is paramount just for the purposes of health and position. So this is good that you're taking this fight slow. Okay, so you're doing really well there. You're just kind of exchanging damage, making sure that you wouldn't die to him. Because he's a guaranteed pick whenever, you're just kind of holding him down. With a little bit better aim, you could have kind of pushed in and killed him earlier. But as soon as you took the damage, you decided to push in towards the door, which is pretty silly. I mean, in the situation where you think he's going to win the fight, it makes sense because you're low HP and you're taking a higher risk play. But you already know he's weak because he only had a bottle available to him, and previously your roamer had shot him with a rocket. So you know at most he's like 100. And then you do like 50 damage to him and he does like 70 to you. But your teammates are coming, so you don't really need to push into him. And you still have like even HP anyway. So yeah, you just want to make sure that you don't die here because this is the freest pick. So just play that fight a bit safer. Use your team as like a little bit of pressure.
Sentry ahead. Incoming. Sentry up there. Medic.
So yeah, you're taking this buff. Hopefully you open this door and stay here for a bit. See, right now you're not gaining anything, like I said earlier. Well, yes, you're going back for a buff, so this does help. Sometimes you just sit around and let your buff decay. And yeah, you were able to trade efficiently with that guy because you had a big buff. And at most, his buff's pretty much going to be the same as yours, because you have a little bit less distance for him to travel, but I expect his mech to be a little more mobile in giving buffs and moving with him to decrease the decay. So in that situation, like that is the strongest 1v1 you're going to run up to, and you can see how having a buff there makes it completely safe. So I'd go for another one right now. Yeah. See, they're actively taking buffs, so they can push this for free. And since your roamer's kind of pretty far back, because he's been used to this constant aggression by Shootist, no one's really checking this door very well. So you see their medic. At this point, you need to let your demo know that that's going on, and you should probably tell your team to kind of Uber into them. They have a pretty shit Uber. The scouts make some pretty poor mistakes there, so you guys are looking pretty good right now as long as Ranga stays alive, but it looks like he's gonna die. Kind of Ninja Nick's fault there for not staying with him, and the rest of the team for not recognizing that that was kind of the play. So you guys win the fight, but a couple mistakes were made. You as a team, you definitely had a really big advantage because their Uber was pretty poor, and you individually, I think, should have been taking buffs more, peeking the door, obviously, like I've been saying. And as soon as the medic kind of shows up over there, you need to expect a really big push from everyone, and there's nothing you can do as a scout there unless you all in onto them and like try to force the medic. That's really going to help your team. In that situation, I would be most comfortable as a team to Uber into them, solo Uber into them there, and be happy that we have the luxury of them multiing a lot and maybe even getting a pick and a lot of free damage because their medic can't manage all of that in that closed area. That's probably what you guys as a team are looking to do. So, nevertheless, you guys should probably get some time on mid off of this. If your soldier's playing properly and shuts down the right door, and guesses the right door, you guys are going to get mid. But yeah, see, he's jumping them before they, or after they get in, which is a problem, and that kind of causes you guys to lose. So if your soldier's not going to get positioned there, you guys really shouldn't even be there. Spot them to see where they're going to push into yard, and just make sure yard's really good for you guys. So because of that little mishap, you guys are probably going to lose 2 for free. Even though your demo's up, they're still going to they can just tank a scout onto it and he's never going to die. So they're going to get that for free. You might want to run an off class. Unless you guys are pushing off this little advantage. Like, this is the time where you can really afford to set up a gun or make sure a heavy's in the right position, because you know, you have advantage to begin with. A bunch of people are respawning anyway. They're not likely to push in because they took a bit of damage from you guys defending too. And you have 40% before Uber, 50% before their Uber. Okay, so at this point, if you were a heavy, for instance, you'd be full buff and they put pushing in like this. Maybe this is a suicide, maybe this is a dry push, I'm not really sure. I just want to note something real quick, that Steve C is scout building, and I don't know if you know this, or anyone's really told you this, but scout building is pretty shit. Like, your medic is much less able to be in a central position because the scout obviously is a basher out, and it takes the weapon switch delay before you can really damage anything that gets on the max. Your mech position is kind of penalized because you're boss and bashering. On top of that, he can't hand out buffs as well, because if you're looking to keep your scout buffed for the fight when they push in, he's going to be like hemorrhaging a little bit, so you can't really give out buffs and have your scout be at 125 and still ticking down as they push in. So based on like luck, if they push in at the right time as you're buffing as the medic, your scout's going to be pretty shit HP, and in general they're going to have better HP, and the push will probably be even though you guys are defending. On top of that, the scout's going to be building around 50 HP, or like 150 HP, 160, so he's only going to have about 25 or 35 health above his normal health. Whereas a soldier, he's going to be at 270 HP pretty much consistently because he doesn't dot down or anything, and that's a lot more health obviously, so you just kind of want to build with a soldier, especially if you're expecting to get it early, and ammo won't be a problem. So yeah, I think that was just a distraction play on the right, and they kind of got their soldier in. So like I was saying earlier, this is a time for people to push in aggressively and sack in. If you guys can take a position, you can push with Uber, but it doesn't look like you guys are really preparing for that. So I think it would have been appropriate for you to go in there and just die for the sake of being in sync with someone. In sync with their suicider.
Thanks for the aid.
I love this doctor!
You deserve a
So yeah, right now, heavy is pretty shitty. Since your team's in the position to defend against a sniper, they don't know that there's a sniper yet, but I imagine they're suspecting it, and this is the position for the mag to be, to not get sniped. So your team's playing pretty far forward, but I think it's pretty difficult for you to get a comfortable buff from this range. So engineer might have been a better choice, or even just sticking to scout. Because as it stands, you're not going to really be able to put up any forward pressure or punish any advances from the sniper since you're heavy and it's going to take you a long time to get anywhere. If you had taken a crit buff there, you probably could have pushed this sniper and probably won. But as it is, you need a full buff before you do anything. Yeah, if you're going to play far back like this, I wouldn't even bother going for a buff. Because by the time you get to the end of the pipe as a heavy, since you're so slow, you're probably around like 350 anyway. And if they're Ubering in, that's a lot of distance to cover before they even get to you. And you're really effective at pushing their Uber away. So you might not even have a big buff by that time. So I'd probably favor playing up a little bit more, maybe even on the ground with the medic. Just so that your buff doesn't decay like this. You should drop down for that soldier. So yeah, at this point, they end up Ubering for no real reason, which is fortunate for you guys. But you guys drop a bunch of people anyway, even though, like, your demo should have lived there, because you knew the medic was going to die anyway, so you should have just jumped away. And I think if people were hitting a bit better and your demo had lived there, because of their poor Uber and you being a heavy, you guys would have won that. It was pretty close anyway, you're doing a lot of damage, so yeah, it's just unfortunate. Oh fuck, that's the first round. This game's long. So yeah, if you're going bottom right, there's really one thing that I always kind of stress, it's pretty paramount. It's just spotting for your team. This is the easiest rollout to kind of spot everything for your team. Just go left of crate, this horizontal crate, spot catwalk and garage and health pack, and then immediately take like one shot, two shots if you have a really favorable spawn on the far left or the far right, and then cross to the other side of the crate and just spot choke, and if they're not there within 2 seconds, then you can call to their combos garage and your team knows they're either going garage or up top. That helps out a lot while delaying long enough for you to not really get in a whole lot of fights, so you're going to have a buff for the most important part of mid. So yeah, pretty much do that, except you don't see the mag there, so I think their combo's going up top. So if you call that for your team, that's going to help out a lot. Okay, so their combo actually ended up being there. And I think their roamer was a bit quick. But yeah, what you did at the beginning of mid there was really good in kind of helping your team figure out where they were and point their aggression in the right spot. Just make sure you're reloading a scatter here. Pistoling, like, it's gonna do a lot of damage if he's running in a straight line, but you're already winning the fight. And you're going to kill him quickest with scattergun anyway, so if you're concerned about your medic, it's probably better to scatter anyway. But the reason you most want to scatter is because if he was a little bit more keen, or he wanted to kill you, he probably could have turned around. And even though you had 185, he only needs to two-shot you, and you need to hit him with like a bunch of pistol, and it's a pretty shitty weapon, let's be honest. So, just so he can't turn on you, just make sure you kind of reload some scatter there. He gave you the opportunity by giving you a little bit more distance than he should have to kind of reload scatter and then take the corner. And then previously when he was getting on your medic, I know it sounds kind of stupid, but you should take your time and make sure you hit your shots. Because you already dropped their med, and even though they'd have advantage if your med went down right now, it's kind of like you're gonna be most reliable and like probably do the most damage being really calm, and getting kind of worried or anxious because someone's on your mech is probably the worst thing. Just recognize that and take your time and make sure you hit your shots, because your mech's going to be able up there to be able to dodge pretty well, and as long as you kind of position properly, kind of play in front of the scout and kind of get in his face a little bit, it's going to be pretty hard for him to hit his medic without getting through you.
Doctor! Yeah, thanks, Doc. Thanks for the aid. Medic!
You guys should take yard for free. Right there, I fast forward through most of it, but you're a bit too far ahead of your team, and if you're looking to do that, I would probably exit through window, just because you have a lot of things to jump off of from there. You can kind of go around the horizontal crates or the vertical crates and jump along those, and the demo's not really going to damage you, and you have a lot of ways to create pressure on yard without really committing yourself. But if you're going straight into right yard from garage, you want to be a little bit closer to your team, just so you can escape more easily.
Alert. The control point is being contested.
This kind of peeking where you kind of stepped on the point there for a little bit was pretty good, but if you knew your team was Ubering, I'm not really sure you did, you probably wanted to be with them in this Uber, and this would be a lot more successful. Double scouts into them, you definitely would have killed the medic. And I think that's just a communication error that you guys have because you're pretty new as a team. And right now, since your med's down, you can afford to die. It's not really going to change a whole lot. Okay, so you guys, Mile goes really huge and gets a bunch of people. You don't want to be going to last because it's expected that they're not going to take it 2 anymore, because you kind of swung this. You're winning already, and by pushing here, this is where I expect most of the people to be. So if you wanted to get some cheeky damage, maybe open up a kill opportunity for yourself, I'd push behind where Mile just died, because as the defending team, I would kind of expect them to kind of come from there. They'd be less likely to come from there, and I would try to spread out and cover the other door, because if pressure is created in one area, I expect that I respect the enemy team enough that I expect that they're going to pressure through a different door to kind of supplement that. So it makes a little bit more sense, a little more sneaky to kind of push the same door. And yeah, you guys end up having a pretty good fight in here, and I think the soldier kills himself, which is fortunate for you guys. But yeah, still you can see how this wasn't that great. And you were already winning a little bit. If you build hard enough, I think you might be on crits actually. Maybe that's your play, and you don't want to risk that by dropping some people. So let's see what charge you guys have. I think it's Uber, so maybe you're just building a bit better. So you might want to, since they dropped their pocket, and if you had spotted that they had 2 off classes, you know they wouldn't be building very well. So just spot the doors a bit earlier. And right now you want to figure out what's going on for your team, because them going in blind is pretty bad, and I don't think anyone else really spotted out what was going on. So I wouldn't be surprised if this push failed. And by not checking the door early, taking it buff early and checking it, you kind of ran into these stickies, didn't know they were there, and really didn't have the opportunity to kind of have a very good last because you didn't know what was going on. So just make sure you check the door, note where stickies are, what all classes they have, if they have a sniper, what door, where their meta is playing, and tell that to your team so it makes it a lot easier for them.
Yourself on that darn point, mister.
Don't know why you guys aren't pushing. At the very least, you can try and get this gun down or kill the NG and pressure the doors. But you have an advantage for last, so it's good that you didn't risk that. But risk it a little bit, obviously, is what I'm trying to say. The NG's not really going to be able to 1v1 a demo in med. So yeah, you're looking to spot the doors a little bit earlier this time. So yeah, this is good. Except you're taking your time with them for a little bit no reason, you're just letting your buff decay. So you're safest if you do it close to getting a buff. So the closer, because you're leading, this is good for your team, you can spot the stickies, you find the gun. It's kind of unfortunate that it does so much damage to the soldier, but this is good. If you get, I guess you're Ubered, put view models on. Now I can know. That was my mistake, yeah. I assume you were Ubered there, you got Ubered towards the point, but I would suggest that you not go on the point if you were expecting not to get Ubered. And in that situation, I'd rather have a medic spread Uber elsewhere, knowing the scout at 185 is going to probably be pretty effective just following up on the Uber aggression. In general, you don't want to get on points unless you're absolutely certain that you're going to get it. Like, if there's any risk, and since you got Ubered, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't that optimal in terms of using the Uber to do that. I would probably sit, in most cases, a soldier or demo on the point, and kind of create aggression with a tank scout into the doors, or behind the point, something like that. Just because the scout's very limited in terms of damaging and taking damage on the point. He's going to take a lot of damage and he has a low health pool on the point, so he's likely to die doing not a whole lot on the point. So it's not always this case with every map, but on Granary it's definitely kind of pretty true about that. But you guys should be taking this pretty easily. And yeah, you guys take this textbook. It was really good lesson, your part, and your team. So good job. Fast forward. So yeah, you don't want to cut this line of sight because this opens up to them getting a bit further ahead, and if they had been preemptively jumping garage, you would be dead instantly. So make sure you always have sight of choke when you're peeking right at the crates. It was good that you did damage to that scout on top, but would have been better if you kind of spot everything out. Okay, right now you're losing pretty badly. You don't want to get behind them. You want to fight them as soon as possible. You're just giving them time to collect packs, re-heal, and kind of get situated and maybe put up a trap or pre-fire. Right now you're just decaying your own buff. You haven't dropped anyone, so you're probably not... Wow. Okay, so it's fortunate for you that they send a bunch of people forward to kind of get on your med. So you have a pretty good chance of doing something in this mid, so let's see how it goes. The soldier spotted you, so you're kind of in a shit position, but maybe you pick someone up getting their pack or getting your pack. Yeah. See, I think you should have just stayed in at mid, and in the event that you don't do anything, you're not 3 respawn waves behind everyone else, you know? Actually, I guess it's just 2, but you're 2 respawn waves behind the people that died trying to leave mid when you were up, so just keep that in mind. Maybe take some pressure off of them too, even though I wouldn't expect their team to push like that with someone behind them. That was pretty silly on their part. Okay, so the rumor's getting there early. Either that or you have a really bad spawn, but if the roamer's getting there early, I think it's pretty safe to assume, or if that's the pocket getting there early, it's pretty safe to assume that they're gonna come from choke. So you can make that call really early. And if it's the pocket there, you want to make sure you hit him, because there is a timing where if you do 4 jumps out of spawn as pocket and equalize to choke, you can kind of pre-fire some rockets at garage for free without risk taking damage. And if they happen to be trying that and fucking it up, then you basically shoot them when they're at like 27 HP, and you kind of get a pretty free kind of mid because they lose their crit heals. Yeah, that mid was, I don't know, it was just kind of your team playing in the corner and not much you can do. I think your soldiers are getting aggressive at the wrong time, and your demo doesn't really push up at the right time, / isn't loaded at the right time, and you and your scout partner need to take buffs to kind of push in at the right time. As long as all of you guys are doing this like the same kind of style at the same time, just getting really aggressive at like a couple seconds after the soldiers get there, your mids are gonna go a lot better. It sounds really stupid and simple, but if you're having trouble with mids and don't want to really plan out like a really sophisticated mid, that's gonna work best for you. So you don't want to be here, because if I'm a pocket or a scout, especially if it's a scout that's leading, I'm going to kill you as a sniper. I will just chase you into spawn and make sure you die, because it's the easiest kill in the world. They can't really defend themselves. And even though you're probably going to live, and I'd say you're lucky to live here since you got jumped, you're not getting a whole lot by staying for that extra shot, and you're just preventing yourself from getting back to scout more quickly. So by the time you get out here, you know, you don't have a crit heal because your med couldn't get to you, even though he's probably going to die. So you look to spread heals as much as possible. Fortunately, your team kind of shits on them all. So, yeah, good for you guys.
The final control point is being contested.
They got a sentry up there. Sentry ahead.
Alert. The control point is being captured.
Thanks, Doc.
Huh. They're trying to give you mid for free. Alright, so make sure you should have taken a buff there, and you should be actively looking to clear stickies here, because this kind of opportunity is really juicy to take too. You guys should be getting it. Your match should be healing people so they get crit heals, and not kind of, yeah, I don't know. You guys are making the right decision with the heals there. And now, again, I mentioned that you only want one person on this point, and it's kind of showing here because everyone's taking damage, and since your med wasn't focusing crit heals anyway, there's not really 1 or 2 or 3 players that have the opportunity to kind of lead the push with their extra health. So everyone's doing this. They all already don't have a lot of health, and you guys are lucky if you kind of live this. It's kind of irrelevant whether or not you had someone behind you. You guys should have been a bit better in kind of covering the doors. But at the same time, even if there wasn't something there, they would have just destroyed you on... I just kind of fast forward too far, but they would have destroyed you on 2. So back to this mid. Your team's getting a little more aggressive early, which you guys should look to do since both their scouts are up top. In general, I think that against 2 scouts up top, it's probably most effective to have both scouts go lower left, just so they can create some more point pressure and kind of push them off of up top, or kind of commit on the demo if they see the opportunity. So yeah, you guys have full Uber advantage. You're going to look to stay with your medic right now, because I think Steve C just spawned and no one's really with him. The scout, one scout at least. Even I'd have both scouts here just to make sure you get this. You don't want to Uber here. You want to be getting into... Okay, see. You guys didn't need to Uber here. Grape was making the mistake by going in. You had the cap for free. You have to let your team know that they don't need to Uber here. For the follow-up, after you guys capped without Ubering, you could have taken it into left yard after waiting a little bit for Steve C to catch up, make sure he got a really good buff. And then, I think Ranga's a little bit behind you guys, so he takes the pack and comes in after the Uber with maybe crit heals potentially. And you guys just infest the left side and make sure you kind of take it. And you still have a big Uber advantage even though you wait a little bit. Just make sure your push is really strong. So instead you have this really shitty Uber. I would be pretty hesitant on going in here because okay, so as long as your med leaves, this is fine. But yeah, it was good for you guys to get the medic, but continuing to commit is pretty dangerous here. Honestly, their medic really should have lived. He should have surfed or just kind of kited the right direction, more towards the right side. I really didn't expect that Uber to do anything at all. Maybe their demo wasn't there, but he really should have all stick the doors to fuck and just bounced your soldier in the air. But yeah, fortunately for you guys, your med lives and they drop theirs because you guys kind of salvaged that Uber a bit. And it was good to recognize that you should have gone for the medic there, since it was a pretty unfortunate situation and you turned it into a good one. And that's unfortunate. You never want to really push up top. Well, for one, I don't think pushing up top is that great ever, but you don't want to push up top if you have like if you're doing it slowly. For one, it's bad. You're gonna get forced in a shitty situation no matter what. As you saw there, your pocket went in first, and it was fucking miserable. So in the future, maybe you lead that push, get Ubered in, kinda fuck with the heavy on the pipe, and then fall down to the lower left and help a teammate get in, and then that buys enough time for your soldiers to get in. Even though you have a pretty crappy Uber, maybe you don't even need to Uber in. If the heavy's far back, you don't Uber in, and you could just kind of distract some spam. But like, it's just gonna be really shitty all the time if you do it slowly. And in general, I expect a player to be there, so not pushing it first, I think, is a mistake. Just to kind of pressure them out. And again, you're in this situation where you're not really able to have a successful push because you don't know what's going on at last, so you want to peek those doors a bit earlier.
Stand on the bloody point, you half-wit! They got a sentry up there! Sentry ahead! They got a sentry up there!
So yeah, you got the advantage again, and you know they have a sniper. You see him right there. You guys can look to pick this guy at the door, and you don't really run the risk of doing anything poorly, especially if you're the one dying, because by the time you end up pushing, if you had gone at 50%, you would be respawned and coming in right as the Uber ends, which is just kind of a nice natural timing. So maybe picking that soldier opens up a dry push for you, or you guys can sack in and still kind of have a really good Uber there. So just a little minor mistake there. And this is going really well. You guys are critzing. Didn't notice that. But yeah, it was a good crits. And it was fortunate that you spotted out where the sniper was and where the soldier was, but I think you should have taken a buff and checked the right side a bit earlier just to confirm all that information that you got. Okay. You want to make sure you get the bottle there. Everything up to that point was good, except if I were to pressure the scout and catwalk, I would jump to the far end of the horizontal crate where he kind of struggles to hit me while I'm in the air because those are easy shots, and then push towards him. But everything up until that point was pretty good, and then you missed the bottle, which is a bit unfortunate, but you dropped down at the right time, so this is a really good play from you up top. You need to focus these scouts because they're away from the medic. You probably should have just kind of pushed into them. Like, you're not really at the point where I would say you're losing the mid, because aggregate health, you guys are a bit better. Both of you guys are really stacked, and their scouts are pretty terrible HP just because they were away from the med and they were getting shot at. So I think you guys probably could have just walked into them, kited that way with your medic and avoided the soldier. But it's still fine that you guys live. Okay, so one thing when you're doing these stupid little trades with scouts, I'm not saying that they're bad or anything, but they're not really, nothing usually comes from them, but you want to make sure you're loaded, really loaded, because in the case where they extend and you get some really sick mid-range damage, you want to be able to follow up on it. And if you're kind of firing 2 at a time, 3 at a time, if you get all that really good damage, you can't follow up on it because you're not loaded. And in this situation where someone comes to help them, you want to be loaded enough so if they get aggressive on you and you make a little bit of positioning error, you can kind of defend yourself, at least kind of walk into them and deal as much damage as you can before you die. And then obviously if your roamer hits a random rocket, you want to be loaded enough so you can chase that kill comfortably and don't have to extend further because you don't have all your ammo loaded. Just make sure you have a little bit more better ammo management when you're doing those long range trades. two at a time, not really a whole lot until you see them with no overheal particle and you can really focus them down. So yeah, you guys, you never want to stick the right side preemptively as a team, so I just let Ranga know that. That's why you're there, to kind of always spot the right side by actively peeking that door. And since you know that Shoes is going for this drop down play again, your team as a whole can make pressure for you guys by pushing out through Z as you guys push through the right side, and you can kill these scouts here because they're likely alone, as long as you've been spotting there's no stickies there and there's not really a whole lot of presence there. So you would spot them, kind of call it out for your team as you're getting a buff, and then push there that way. Your pocket scout and medic would push through closet and you guys would push through the right side, and you can pick up some kills there for free, and it really wouldn't punish you, because while they could get on the point, they're down a couple players, and you can kind of concave them, just like send a bunch of people around as if you were pushing into two, and just make sure they kind of don't get the point. So it's not really punishable by them if you kind of spot the right things and their positioning is poor, like it was a couple rounds ago. So right now, your team also has the opportunity to push through closet and create some havoc, because their demo man, I'm pretty sure, is on the left side. So that's just an opportunity that's available to you guys right now. Since their medic was that far back, I probably would have made that call. Just because if he's not kind of close and around the corner, he's pretty easy to jump, so maybe have your pocket sack in at that point. And it should have been a pretty easy force. So yeah, I definitely need to be taking more buffs here. Like, you're not really, like, you're just shuffling between both areas. It's not really accomplishing much. And see, if you had a buff there, you've been more comfortable with chasing that kill. Since your roamer landed a rocket, or your pocket landed a rocket, that's the kind of opportunity where you can go in and get a little bit aggressive with a buff. So just take more buffs, you know, it just doesn't really hurt anyone taking a bunch of buffs. The more buffs you have, the more easy it is for you to take that door and see what's going on. Long stalemate. This time you take it with a buff, that's good, but you should just stay there until it decays. Like, you just had it decay from 160 to 140 doing nothing, and you might as well kind of maximize your health a little bit. You're going to get more buffs more frequently because of that, but you're also going to see a lot more, and that's going to be really useful for your team. So you see the demo there, you should probably be telling Ranga to move over a bit. And actually they might be pushing through Z, as it looks. With the yeah, just kind of notify your team what they're doing. Like, Ranga should have probably been sticking up Z and the right side. And yeah, that's unfortunate that you peeked that. You should probably let your soldier peek it first, and then you follow up on his damage. But yeah, in general, I don't think that's a very friendly place for a scout to be, so I'd avoid being up in lunchbox.
Time has been added.
Sentry up there!
I think you probably could have pushed that scout or commit on the demo, because you know for a fact that your first shot was a meat shot on the scout. I can tell just from the way he got pushed that that was a really heavy shot, and then obviously I can tell it because the HUD, but yeah, just when you have health like that, just shit on people, dude. Like, you can chase the scout. I don't think the pack's up because I imagine the demo would have taken it. And the scout's going to be the first person to get there. So just push into the demo. At the very least, since the demo's on the left side, he's not going to have a lot of support. Because his med's going to be on the right side, and his soldier and roamer are going to be pushing for that right side as well.
The final control point is being contested.
I think that's kind of the situation where you don't need to die. It's pretty important that you stop the point from getting capped, but you run into the situation where even though you stopped it, you gave up your life, and you guys are probably going to lose anyway just by sheer numbers. And you make that roamer look better than he is by dying to that, so just make sure you kind of take it calmly. And in a situation where you know he's already weak because he didn't have overheal particles and you knew he jumped and you and Steve C were damaging him already, it's kind of safe to assume that you'll be able to kill him without really getting on the point. From a reasonable range. So yeah, you see their combo on the right, and then you pressure these scouts, which is good. Ranga's piping, which is I think is big a mistake there. But that should have, the pressure you created onto those scouts should have just killed them. Like Ranga should have been killing them at the beginning of the mid. And then seeing where they were for your team was really useful. So that was a good mid for you, even though it looked pretty bad. Obviously, if you practice your aim a little bit more, you'll probably just shit on those scouts by yourself. The guy dropping onto you didn't really have a right to kind of do as much damage as he did to you without kind of just dying. So you don't want to give away your position there. Firing from the right. If you want to be there, like, I probably would have pushed through Z, just because, and it just seemed like a pretty good idea to me. And then, like, either way, putting 6 damage on the med that's just gonna regen is just not a good idea. You never want to give away your position to the scouts, so you just kind of closed a lot of opportunities for yourself there by letting everyone know where you were by shooting them for 6 damage. I think that Uber was okay, but you should have looked to take it into right yard with the buff at the end of it. And focus the scout closest to you, because you're going to be able to do the most damage to him, and your team's going to take the most damage from him. So in situations where you're already winning or playing like a supportive role, you want to be dealing damage to the people that can do the most damage to your team.
Alert. The control point is being captured.
Okay, you want to take these wider. The longer the fight goes, the bigger chance you have of winning when he's already that low. Obviously you didn't know how much of his health was, but you saw that he didn't get the bottle in garage, and you knew he just had the 65 from the pack. So based on the damage you had done to him, I expect you to have a health advantage even if no one else damaged him. And yeah, you just want to take it slow.
They got a sentry up there. Sentry ahead.
So your team just kind of seems to have some really mixed ideas about what's going on in the game sometimes. Their demo's getting fucked with by Aspire and then they decide to Uber. It doesn't seem like the best idea, especially since you're going back for it. You're not going to get a whole lot out of the Uber, and it's pretty clear in the numbers right now. You guys didn't get anything with that Uber except for yard. Alright, so you don't need to cap if everyone's already on the cap. That's really important. It's nice that you want to get health, and I think that's probably a good idea since you guys should be looking to push into last and force them, or get it if you guys think they don't have it yet, but obviously you're going to get it, so hopefully you guys know that they're going to have it and try to force them. But yeah, I probably would have pushed up along the outs or inner wall of 2 and just kind of pushed to that right side and see if I could have kind of committed on my team's damage, because as they're leaving they only have line of sight of the point and they're comfortable in kind of leaving because they can see 4 people on the point. So it's just kind of a play that kind of maximizes a little bit of surprise and, you know, a little bit of damage, but this is fine too. But I don't know, the way that kind of played out was pretty bad. your medic wasn't healing properly. He's spreading a lot of heals instead of focusing on a couple people. So this push is probably going to be a little bit worse, and you guys didn't really get health packs. And when you're already winning, you just want to make sure the next push is good. So maybe even instead of going towards the right side, like I was saying, and hugging the wall to get some damage, you maybe should have just gone to lunch and gone to pack there, and then drop down from up top, or taking the pack in the window room up top if the lunch one was taken already. See, you're going a bit too slow, and then yeah, you guys obviously didn't know they had it, so your med's probably gonna die here, or they're gonna miss a lot and let him live, which is pretty good for you guys. I doubt you're gonna be able to hold 2 though. So you're gonna get spawn with your pocket, but Steve C is not gonna get the spawn. You can probably still defend this if you push in through L, except this is fucking... Okay, I don't know why you guys are Ubering like that. Like, if they're good, they're gonna play in a situation where even if you Uber, their med's gonna live. And that's not even hard to do. Like, every team, like even teams in main are gonna do that. And they're just naturally gonna do it. They're not even gonna think about it. So it's not really tough. So you kinda have to create... Like, I know you guys want to stop the point, but you really have to understand what your advantages are. And if you can pick up kills because you're pushing like L or something, and you get behind them as they're capping, then you can take the point and kind of have a last. You have to be more forward looking than you are right now, because while you stop the point, they're gonna get away. There's already some time on the point, and you know it's pretty susceptible to a back cap, so you probably can't push last. You should just let them cap, and it's honestly even better. Like, having it this high of a cap rate is just terrible. I'd rather have this capped, because even if you have a pretty good last push, someone can just sit on that like an idiot for a couple seconds, and you know they're making a big play for their team just by sitting on a point. So in general, like really questionable Ubers, like you want to use your Uber as a threat to take area, and then kind of sack when it gets towards even Ubers, sack in and force their medic, and then play in a way that your medic doesn't have to use. And like in that way, you really only want to be using your Uber if you can guarantee you get the medic. Just keep maintaining your control. So you guys mess up a little bit in the past couple Ubers doing that, but fortunately they kind of take the wrong direction to go up top. So you guys are going to be pretty fine pushing in the last. Even if they had delayed up there, it would have been better than what they did. Like, their max should have probably just backed up bottom left. And even if they kind of stayed in... Yeah, I just don't know why they went up top. They could have dropped down through that open area. So there's a scout fight behind you, and I think you should probably be helping Steve C with that, rather than going for this. But yeah, just based on what you're hearing, like Scatterfire exchange, you should have really been on top of helping Steve C there. Well, I mean, he should have called for help, but you can see how much work the guy did. And yeah, like I was saying earlier, they managed to get the cap because it was so capped already, and you had silly Uber. So you guys are probably gonna lose mid off of this.
They got a sentry up there. Sentry ahead.
Yeah, you know, the mid's already going poorly for you, so it's good that you recognize that you have to kind of back out this way. But preferably, like, in your death screen, obviously I can't see because it's not POV, you kind of figure out where your med is and where he's going to be backing out, so you can get a buff earlier, because potentially you could have killed some of those people peeking the yard. At this point, you probably should have just walked into them, kind of backed up through the door and then walked in them to dodge the first rocket, because you're not going to live against a good team, and maybe you can kind of rush down the demo that isn't Ubered and surprise them. Or maybe do some damage towards the scout that's kind of coming in. But yeah, your team had a pretty good crits because they were stacking it really hard and it worked out for them. So now you guys should take 2 for free. You should be looking to get into yard right now because you're not going to be able to deny any spawns. If you kill people that far away from mid, you're not going to be able to deny any spawns like this. And if your roamer is content to sit on the point like that, or your pocket, I don't really know who it was, then just get off of it. You only want one person on a point and a lot of people taking ground. Because as you kind of saw there, because your team, you know, you want to scout lead into an area that you expect to take pretty easily, because scouts are most efficient at dying to traps because they get back quicker, and obviously you can defend with a soldier, so if it kills you and it's kind of even, you know, it's pretty easy to defend. They're obviously quicker at kind of clearing traps, clearing spots, because you know they already have the scatter out, so they're going to clear the trap quickly. They can get places further, so they can see where the people might be hiding a bit quicker than soldiers. So it's a lot easier for you to defend your medic that way, and obviously you're just going to juggle the soldier that jumps your medic. So in that situation, it was probably more appropriate for you to not even cap at all and just let your roamer cap. As your team pushed up and took yard. Obviously that didn't happen, and your med went down, so you guys are pretty fucked. You should just commit. That roamer, that demo should have killed you. I don't know if he has stickies loaded, but he really should have stuck you out, or chased you a little bit and hit you on your way out of garage. And then someone should have followed up on that, so I probably just would have gone in there.
Sentry up there.
Oh, almost done. So this is really good. You need to fight him though. Like, I would be comfortable dying there just for the sake of forcing them or killing him, and then it's a trade, so it doesn't matter, but they're also a bit slowed down. Honestly, they shouldn't have Ubered on him there. They probably could have gone to yard for free. Just because of the lack of pressure that your team was really putting on the window. They were focused a little more on the door. So it should have been a big cue to you to just kind of go in on that guy after you were dealing a lot of damage for free. And even from there, if they decide that they don't want to Uber, which is the right play in their case, it opens up the opportunity for you to kind of go into them and try to force them. So if, as long as you trade well there, you have the opportunity to also get another pick or force them. And then now they fucked up, so this is going to be easy mode, except you kind of take that too close. In general, like, my general movement when we're winning is I take things wide, so I would probably take that, hug the outside, or not hug the far wall and push through that door. And when I'm losing, I'll take things tight, just because I want to surprise people more. I mean, it was unfortunate that you died to that anyway, but what can you do?
Alert! The control point is being contested. Time has been added.
Thanks, Doc. Medic! Yeah, thanks, Doc.
So yeah, you should have taken your buff immediately to a choke. Instead, you dropped all the way to 155 before you kind of checked out what was going on there, which is again kind of a reoccurring theme of this review, just not taking your buff immediately to a door to spot it. Sometimes it just decays for not really a whole reason. Obviously you want to listen to sound cues and what your teammates are telling you, so you don't take a whole lot of damage peeking that door, but you want to get there as early as possible. Actually, I was going to mention a hiding spot, but it's only in blue yards, so you didn't really have to check that. So yeah, you took left yard pretty well there.
Alert! The control point is being contested.
Probably should have looked to push Chaz a bit more there and have your roamer kind of jump in on him. He was definitely a pick. You just guys needed to be a little bit better coordinated. And this is going terribly, so if you're doing something here, you push them now or leave, because that'll happen. So as soon as you drop 2 people for presumably nothing, it's not, and like you're a scout, there's not a whole lot of pressure you can put up from medium range. So, you know, those spam shots aren't really doing a whole lot when people are already dead and no one can follow up on your damage. Okay, so you saw that scout that went there was pretty close to the medic because a little bit of the beam was trailing on him. I don't know if that's a Source TV kind of glitch or you actually saw that heal beam. So I'd kind of suggest to my team that they probably are pushing garage right now, or they might, like, just be careful about garage right now. So you guys should be kind of shelling into there. Okay, it turns out that they were pushing left, so in that situation, your team looks garage and they're not there. You probably should have stayed a little bit just to spot it out. It's really good of their medic to kind of play on garage before they get those buffs and then move over, so that the people in the garage kind of have as big of a buff as possible. So if they don't go garage immediately after you call something like that, it's kind of assumed that since the heal beam was there, they were making sure garage had really good buffs before they pushed the opposite side, and that kind of theory can be applied to every map. So they had a shit Uber though. Ranga kind of rapes them. You want to go far behind them, and yeah, don't shoot them. You might, yeah. That was good. Yeah, just let him live there. If you had hit more, you probably would have killed him, but it was just a really good play to make, so unfortunate that you didn't kill him, but really good play. And previously when your soldier was fighting the soldier, I would have been a little less reluctant to take damage in the hopes that maybe I could buy block a bit for him. And this is another bad Uber. You should just commit on them. See, the problem there is you did this kind of double take. You weren't too sure about what you wanted to do, or your team probably didn't tell you what was going on there. But when the Uber is that fucking awful, you're gonna have to do something, I'm gonna tell you that. So, that would have gone so much smoother if you just kept going. They had time to reload an extra shot, a time to peek the corner again and know exactly where you were. And because of that, they kind of mulched you. Since your team didn't do a whole lot of damage to them, they can still kind of comfortably hold their ground here. So you shouldn't expect that they have to leave. So just kind of get into them. Obviously, you're gonna get it. They're gonna get it pretty soon, and it's gonna. Okay, no, they just played it pretty bad there. But yeah, you guys are gonna get this round pretty good. But yeah, you can understand how, even though it didn't go the way I predicted, it still would have been more effective for you to go a bit earlier. You probably would have got more damage out. And probably, because they didn't have time to reload, you may have been able to get back to the pack. So yeah, again about the ammo pack thing behind crates, it's kind of really important on ground remit to stay around there for a little bit. Because not only will you get shit on by the scout that goes there, because if he has a really good spawn on the far right, he can roll out through your right yard, and he ends up getting there really quickly, and he'll shit on you before you even get to the pack, in some cases. But you're also slowed down so you can kind of see garage. And the same way that you would call their position in garage off of not seeing them choke on the right side, you can do the same here. And by sitting on the pack and just kind of pressuring it a little bit, feeling it out, you also get this excellent sight line of the window. So if there happened to be a team that goes up top a lot, you want to be doing this so you can kind of confirm what they're doing at the beginning and mid. So this rollout where you kind of stick around here. Unfortunately, you kind of push up too early here, and that's kind of the risk you run by, I don't know, you just push up early. So I want to stay a bit further back, and I expect you to, you should have died there realistically, but you go pretty well, and you're helping your armor out here. Yeah, that was just a good mid for you. But I think a lot of it had to do with the people not expecting you there and missing their shots on you, because they fired 4 rockets on you and didn't do anything. And by that time your team had already shit on them. So yeah, you guys should be getting 2. I don't know why you're capping with 2 times. Just have one of the scouts in yard to protect your demo a bit. Not that it really matters, but you guys aren't really going to. This is a good play way behind for that, because you're winning, so you expect the enemies to do something risky like that. At this point, I would ignore him and let my team know that he's behind us and just kind of push into them, knowing that they don't have a whole lot of pressure, especially since their demo died. You could probably make it into last even. Yeah, you guys should just be going into them, and you don't even have to worry about him getting onto you. As long as the person that's forward most clears the sticks above the point like you did, you guys can get into them comfortably. Since they don't have a demo and there's a roamer behind, there's not a whole lot they can do to slow you down for the roamer to catch up. But this is looking like a pretty good last. So you guys have Chris. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. I think they might get it. You should be worried about this sentry, since you're already on this side. Just kind of peek it and like stutter step the corner and take it down. But doesn't really matter. You guys are gonna have like a little bit of advantage, except they're gonna be building a bit better than you because you're on a roamer. I don't know if that's gonna play a part here. Yeah, it looks like they weren't building very well either, so you guys are still at the same advantage you had earlier. So they could have made it like a 20 advantage, and they would have known that because just the way the last played out. And you probably wouldn't be able to push off of it. Oh, you have crits, I keep forgetting that. Yeah, this is fine. As long as you don't lose too many people in the crits, it's kind of ideal. Like, the crits is kind of a free push. You just spam it a lot. The more you use crits, the more effective it is. So you just want to damage the people here. Like, it's kind of wishful to think that they're not going to look there. And you're going to be able to, like, sneak past a couple people to get on the medic. But in the situation where you can kind of kill the soldier with like 3 shots, since I would assume that the medic, I'll just pause for a sec, I'll assume that the medic would be healing the soldier until he got through, at which point he would buff the demo because the demo would decay a bit since he was tanking the soldier through a couple doors. You can kind of assume that the medic's not going to be able to get the soldier in time. You'll probably kill him in 3 shots. So, should have gone for that. It would have been easy because you just rushed into him. He could have self-damaged himself too. And in that way you trade there, slow their Uber down a lot, and your team can fuck with their flank, and that opens up a lot of possibilities.
Sentry ahead. Hey, I'm flying.
So yeah, your soldier's covering you this time, so you can see how much better that retake went than previously.
Come on, man. Sentry up there.
So I think you guys are looking to get in the left yard, which is good. You need to be pushing this guy out though. He's alone, and you guys have the potential to kill him if you're a little more aggressive. And this is good. You're not taking any damage here. For some reason they're a little bit worried about you guys instead of making you use. And yeah, just kind of look at where other people aren't looking, especially in a vulnerable situation like that. But you guys should be taking this. It's a really good play for you to lead in into 2 like that. I probably would have kept pressuring a little bit forward, knowing that I would take some damage, and even though I had a buff, Like, I would have a buff there. I think you did at this time too. You'd just be comfortable that my buff would be gone, but it would probably decay anyway, capping. So recognizing that, I would just go cap and let the other scout get a buff, pushing into last. But yeah, just I think they should have forced you guys there, and by playing a bit more aggressive, you could have prevented that. But in general, that was just a good push by you guys. So yeah, you don't want to, first of all, walk in that much of a straight line. It's a demo man. He's likely to hit you, and you're not going to gain a whole lot by damaging him from that range. So what you did there was good, but you likely wanted to kind of cut in front of this horizontal crate towards gap and get a buff. Just for the natural timing of that's probably when your med's going to be working towards the point. And you obviously don't get shit on by that scout up top because you're kind of 2v1ing at that point. But you probably could have traded with the scout too, and that would have been a really good damage trade. I don't know, that may would have gotten a lot better if you kind of did a little bit more damage to the demo and focused the scout a bit more, and then kind of back towards your medic. So at this point, you guys kind of have to go all in, and you have a pick already. So yeah, this is good. And this is exactly where you want to go. That's perfect. You don't want to fuck with that soldier. You want to go around the other door because they're still Ubered. Yeah. Like, you don't really have to make anything more than you already have because you pick the demo and force the Uber. So taking your time after that is kind of a luxury you've earned for yourself because you already did so well and your team's kind of even at that point. It's only because you guys overcommit and dropped your mag that you ended up losing. I think that you were trying to create like a focus on the point, like you're all going to collapse on them. But it's a lot more difficult to do that as a scout that isn't seeing a whole lot than as the kind of combo that's going to see everything. And yeah, like I said earlier, you want your combo to be pushing in first so the people the heals are getting shot at. So it's more easy to let them set up, and the longer you take, the more confident you can be that people are going to react to your calls. Like, I'm behind, and instead of going Z, you still say I'm behind for a couple seconds, I'm going to get into them soon, and you go through the shower door. You still have that opportunity where they're still on the point, or they're backing up through there. But your team's more aware, and like they really know that you're behind because you said it like 50 times. And it's easier for you to set up a play like that. But in general, like I said, your team should be doing that. So you actually played pretty well there, except there's some mechanical errors, and then I think that you should be in more Ubers. Like a lot of the times when your team has advantage, you are not there, and I guess Steve C is, but you guys would benefit from a double scout Uber if you're trying to chase the med down in those situations. I think you wanted me to go over this because your damage is pretty poor, and I think a lot of that is because of kind of the way you play mids, where you're calling out what your team, or where their team is, which is pretty good, I would say. It's kind of worth not doing that much damage. And the fact that you're always kind of delegated this role of being like just watching shit, which is kind of stupid. They're not really making use of you. And it's not like your aim's that much worse than pretty much everyone else in Invite. It's still pretty good, and it definitely shines it a couple times in this demo. So you should really make use of it, and it's only going to get better the more aggressive you play. So I definitely try to do that, or like talk to your team about it, because I don't imagine you have that great of a time just watching shit. But yeah, for the most part, just like mechanical things about when to watch and what you're watching and how to approach fighting someone. And then your mids had a little bit of mistimings and like rules that I kind of set out for myself so that I would never break. You kind of broke some of those, so that's a little bit of an issue for me there. Other than that, I don't know. If you're hitting a little bit more, and you kind of planned your flanks a bit better, since you tend to be the scout that ends up behind them, it would work out a lot more for you. So just see if you can get your team to support you a bit more, and definitely stick to scatter. Don't do any shortstop or fan. You know. Yeah, just you can get pretty good by the end of the season. So I like to see that. So keep it up, man.